It is 6 o'clock, so I'll go ahead and call to order the Boulder I-5J Board of Education's regular meeting for Wednesday, August 5th. If you would, please all take a moment and rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Diagana, would you please call roll?
Johnson.
Here.
Linda Proctor is excused. Nate Sisano.
Here.
Amy Musgrave. Here. Michael Wales.
Here.
Liam Durak.
Here. Do we have any changes to this evening's agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice President Sisano, a second by Director Johnson to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. I'm all nervous now. Do we have any citizen comments?
No, sir.
We don't. Oh.
Not on agenda items.
Oh. What? Yes. I don't know. That's why I'm nervous. Well, let's move right on then to staff and student celebrations and recognitions. Superintendent Nielsen.
Well, as I get started, I just want to say welcome back. We are starting to ramp up and get really excited about the year in front of us. The last couple weeks, we start to get staff back. We spent time, a group from the district spent time up at Case last week, which is always kind of an entry into the year. And we had a presentation by 2 of our elementary schools, and they crushed it. It was so good. It was neat to see the presentation up there, standing room only, by our principal and AP from PRE and our principal and AP from MES. In fact, we had a couple staff members from our district that had to get up and leave the room so we could give other people our chairs. There were individuals that were in the hall.
Where was it at?
Up in Breckenridge.
Oh,
Is where
awesome.
Case is every year.
Awesome.
We had other districts asking to come see what we're doing, which is always cool and empowering, I think, but what was also exciting was to just hear the way they were honoring the work and the way they were able to talk about what they've been doing. So just a fantastic way to kick that off. The last couple days, we spent time with all of our principals and APs, and I'll talk a little bit more in the superintendent's report around how we think connecting what we did yesterday to all the way through what we're doing with the board could be really powerful this year. So I'm excited to talk a little more about that. I also want to celebrate. We'll spend a lot more time in a work session with the board where we talk about the data that we have seen from last year. But one of the things I just want to call out as we come back is what we're seeing both from MES and MIS, and that's staff. When you look at the achievement that we are seeing, where those schools are competing, and in parallel with our other elementary schools, that's not happened. You can't go back and see that in this community. So that's exciting, and I just want to say thank you to those staffs for the work they've done over a couple transitions and to maintain. When you look at the scores that MIS achieved last year, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, it's awesome achievement-wise in terms of where we're headed. By no means are we done, but it's pretty neat to see. And then I think with that, I'll stop and invite Randy to take a little bit of my time as part of a celebration of a staff member.
Thank you, Superintendent Nielsen.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Well, good evening, board. And I just, first of all, want to say and commend all of you for being on the Board of Education. It's quite a job. But with that, many of you volunteer for other boards. And we have a board member among us who got an award from the Colorado BOCES Association. to be on the all-state board. So out of 21 BOCES and all the board members, very few are selected. And Michael could not attend our award ceremony, which was July 8th in the evening.
And after our conversation, I wish I would have been there instead of where I was.
But the exiting executive director, Dale McCall, asked me to personally present you with your award that you were going to receive that night. You can open it up. It's a golden apple, represents education. But we know that BOCES across the state, and especially Centennial BOCES, which you are a member of, are not successful without good leadership at the board level. And for all of the years that you've helped us, we congratulate you. So,
I was pretty freaked out, man.
Thank you.
You gotta open your golden
Do I need to come up
apple.
front? Okay.
Yeah, open your golden apple.
Let me open it here real quick. Yeah, so he called me earlier today and he said, "Do you have public comment tonight?" I was like, "What do you want to come?" He's like, "What do you want to come talk about?" He's like, "Well, I can't."
So bad. Oh, that's so pretty.
congratulations.
We should probably take one of the whole board too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't do anything.
We'll share with that's it.
And we'll get you the program that honored your name in that too.
Thank you.
It's in my office.
You're a sneaky guy.
Enjoy your dinner too. You guys going out?
Yeah.
Good.
That concludes celebrations.
Okay. Any other celebrations from board? All right, let's move on to reports and comments from board members.
Start with our students.
Students first. It's been a great summer trying to enjoy the last bits of it before senior year starts, college application season starts. As a part of the State Youth Council, we've continued our efforts with our statewide survey over the Quality Career Pathways framework, trying to figure out what students are interested in, what kind of opportunities and resources they have within their means, and what we can do as a state and as a Colorado River Council to try and address those problems that those students face, whether they're in rural areas, places with lower income, school districts with low resources, what have you. I've also been able to be a part of the post-secondary transition advisory committee's group feedback sessions. So as a part of House Bill 1317 this past spring, of trying to work on the initiative from an executive order last December by the governor to join up all the workforce functions of CDLE, OEDIT, CDE, in combination with the entire department of CDHE to create a workforce development department. The Gov's office has created all these group feedback sessions for students, high schoolers, college students, students in technical colleges as well, to really give their feedback on what works and what doesn't. So that's been a really cool thing to be a part of. I'm really happy with what they've been able to do just in about a month that they've been together so far. But other than that, hiking, golfing, traveling, it's been fun.
Cross country practice start yet?
Yes, we've been running a lot, lots and lots. Just miles.
Has anyone passed out from the heat?
No, we we don't get much sleep because you kind of have to get up at like, 5 or 6 a.m. So you're not running at 90 degree heat. If you do want to sleep in, then yeah, it's totally possible, but that could happen. I haven't heard anyone yet. Practice starts Monday, and I think all the sports will start Monday, so should be a good fall season of sports.
I'm excited. Yeah, Sadie.
So I didn't particularly prepare anything because I wasn't sure if I'd be doing this. But as far as my summer goes, it's been wonderful. A lot of traveling, hiking as well. One of the experiences I think is a little pertinent. I went to RILA, so the youth leadership awards for Rotary, and it was such a wonderful leadership camp because we all learned how to interact and connect with students like across Colorado. So I thought that was just a really an experience that really opened my eyes to all the other people and experiencing that. And we had a bunch of guest speakers as well. They talked about like how to build our futures, what it means to tell stories, tell history. So I just thought that was a wonderful experience, and I got into that because of our Interact Club sponsor, Ms. Forrest and Matt Roosevelt. So I just thought it's such a wonderful thing, and that should be pushed out to more of our students. Other than that, it's been a lot of anticipation for coming my first board meeting, and I'm so excited to start the year off with you all. Thank you.
That's good.
We're happy to have you, Sadie. Welcome on board. We're so happy that you're here. And I have a big fat nothing for for board meeting reports. But I've definitely been out of the loop, and I think just like everyone in August, where August is like the get into the swing of school. So I'm excited to get started. But I just wanted to give a shout out to all the teaching staff. I know that so many of them are already busy working and preparing and getting their rooms ready, their classrooms ready. And I just didn't want that to go unnoticed. I know how much work goes into making sure everything is in perfect condition for students to come back to school. And I just really appreciate all their efforts. I wanted to save time because I'm figuring you have a speech to go with your award. So
You figured we were.
that's all I have.
And so I don't have much in the way of a report either, but similar to Monica, I say this every year, but as we get ready for a new school year, if you are a teacher, a para, an administrator, a volunteer, custodian or facility staff, those are the true heroes that spend all summer maintaining our buildings. I've had the pleasure, I was not voluntold this year, but I had to be in Pioneer Ridge to help get ready for the year. But that building looks great. That's the only one I've been in over the summer, but the custodial staff, the facility staff have done a really good job making sure our buildings look ready and are ready to have students in them. So if you work in our buildings in any way, I just want to say thank you. It is, as Monica said, a lot of it goes unseen a lot of the time. But it shouldn't, and we appreciate everything everybody does. So as we get ready to launch the new year, I just want to say thanks to everybody.
Very nice. Yes. I too have not done anything to report unless you want to hear about my vacations, maybe my kids who can't, but things like that. But just enjoying some family time and doing everything like that. Appreciate you guys bringing up the staff. We work very, very hard, and our buildings are fabulous. So, and they have a lot of hard work to do, but I don't think we mentioned them really well. So, thanks for doing that. That's my report.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I would say the same thing. Everybody getting things ready. I know we were doing recertifications in my household today, so there was a lot of interesting expressions being yelled at iPads when you're 95% through your course and it restarts on you. And Sadie, I'm so glad you got an opportunity to do RILA. I've been in Rotary for almost 15 years now, and every year after students come back from RILA, they say the exact same thing you said. It changed my life. Couldn't believe it. Eye-opening. I mean, all of the above. So I'm glad you had an opportunity to experience that yourself. So that is all I have. Do we miss anything? All right, let's go on to the report from the superintendent's office.
Well, I'll start by just saying kudos to the Rotary Club of Johnstown Milliken this year because of the experiences. But one of the things that happened, and it was Miss Borison and Dr. Brad, they both went out to Rotaries outside of ours in our community because we only have enough money in our community to send a few. And we had a large number of students that went to both RILA and Young RILA this year. So I don't know exactly how many it was, but it was 8 from the high school, and I think it was close to the same from the middle school. So it was a lot that went from our 2 schools. And we had Rotaries around us that supported that, so that's pretty cool as well. Just thank you to those Rotarians that went above and beyond to try to make sure we had. I sat in on middle school interviews last year, and you sit in with a number of students that all would benefit from it, and then to be able to send almost all of them there is pretty cool, and that's a testament to individuals reaching out to find more resources. So
we used to only be able to send 2,
yeah.
And interviews were incredibly hard because you want to send everybody in.
So now to see the extension and looking for these other resources, and this was the first year that I've been a part of it, that I've watched that many people get to go, which is pretty neat. A couple things coming up that I just want to call out. We have the red carpet tomorrow, that if you're available, the red carpet is at the middle school at 7:30. That's welcoming the new staff members, new teachers to the district. They'll start their orientation tomorrow. So if any board members are available at 7:30, we'd love to have you welcome our new staff. We had our launch last week, and I just want to read you some statistics from it because I think it's pretty phenomenal when you think about the things that it's been created for our launch, given it's only our 3rd year doing it, it's only our 2nd year doing it inside. We had 291 of our 300 backpacks picked up. We served 300 hamburgers and 275 hot dogs. We had nearly 1/4 of the winter coats that we had at the cottages picked up. So we had 115 households that visited the Well Food Bank that morning. We had 566 families show up. So that's 20% of the families that showed up visited the Well Food Bank. And again, we believe around 550 families that came out that day. The turnout was awesome. Having it at MIS worked out super slick. So just a good day. And it really is turning in. I happened to be standing there when 2 different vendors walked by Allie to leave. One of them was there this year, and she said, "Hey, thanks for the invite." I was like, first Saturday in August every year, if you want to come back next year. She's like, "Absolutely, we want to be here." So it's cool to see what it's becoming, and how families are coming and relying on that to kickstart the year. We had a lot of staff members there from each of our schools, teachers, principals, playing games, engaging with the students that were there. So it's just a neat experience to watch and a nice way to kick the year off. We do have Beef and Bean Day this week. Things will look a little different for us this year. We're going to have 2 of our buses. We'll have one regular bus that is one of our traditional buses. We'll have one of our electric buses will be there. And then for us, we'll be gathering feedback around how people are feeling about the needs the district has in between the buses. So we'll be probing individuals at Beef and Bean Day to try to get some feedback to continue to inform the board about what our constituents think about the needs the district has. I do want to just let the board know, I had a chance to step over and let the students know, but we found out today, if you remember, last year we had a presentation that was well received at CASB around student board representation. We've been asked to present again this year on that same topic, again with Harrison. So it'll be a repeat in some sense of what we did last year with our student voice being pretty important there. And the number of times that I have heard other individual superintendents, board members talk about, hey, there was this presentation last year that we got to hear students and share their experiences, what stuff they were working on. It's pretty exciting that we have an opportunity to do that again. A reminder, we've heard from some of you, the kickoff for the entire staff is next week. That's always a great day when we have all of our staff members at Roosevelt High School at the Performing Arts Center. That will start in the Performing Arts Center at 8. If you want to mingle, have light hors d'oeuvre breakfast between 7:15 and 7:30 if you want to mix and mingle a little bit, but we'll start in the pack at 8 o'clock. And we have the whole staff together for no more than 90 minutes that morning. So, and then the last one I just want to throw out is just as we go through tonight and talk about, I'll talk a little more in depth, but as we look at enrollment, right now enrollment is up a little over 130 students across the district, with the majority of the impact happening at the middle school right now. So just context, I'll go a little deeper with that in a little bit. I think that's it.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Now we'll move on to our consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Most of the items on the list listed under the consent agenda have gone through board review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to ensure an extensive review. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
We adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Sorry. We have a motion by Director Musgrave, a second by Vice President Sassano to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We do not need a recess, I don't believe. And we do not have any old business, so we do have some special business. Our first item of special business is the swearing in of our newest student board member, Miss Sadie Gosha. Now I'm saying that right? Correct? Okay, well, I'm gonna have you come up here. Mark, I'm gonna give you these, both of you. And I'll have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Sadie,
Do solemnly swear before God and my community
do solemnly swear before God and my community
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Colorado
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and Colorado
and the laws made pursuant to,
and the laws made pursuant to,
and to faithfully perform the duties of the office of Student Director
and to faithfully perform the duties of Student Director
of the Weld County School District, RE5J, Board of Education.
of
That's
the
all.
Weld County School District Weld Area 5J Board of Education,
Upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
welcome. Yeah, we gotta do a photo. And then Monica's got some stuff for you to sign.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Well, welcome aboard. Yeah, we're
Thank you.
super excited.
It's official now.
You're official. Yeah, fine.
Yes, I would like a picture. Okay. It's on video. Let's not do a video. All right.
We'll celebrate with cake.
Oh, lovely. I think so.
Which hopefully won't take long.
Thinking about it already, huh, Michael?
Haven't stopped thinking about it. So our next item of special business is our mill levy override and bond planning update. Kick that over to you, Superintendent Nielsen. I know.
Monica, you'll keep one and you'll give one to Sadie.
All right, President Wales, board members, thanks for giving us an opportunity to update you on what's happened since we were last together. We talked last, I think we continue to talk about building futures together and what that looks like. Tonight I'm going to walk you through kind of where we are, what's happened over the last about 6 weeks since we've been together as a board, and talk a little bit about what the month of October is going to look like, needs to look like as you wrestle with what the right decisions for the district are. Tonight really is informational, so we can share what we're seeing and what long range planning is thinking about. We do have our next long range planning meeting tomorrow night, but as I click to the next slide, this is just a reminder of what we talked about. We're at MIS late April, early May. And for us down below, we have gone through the July 24th, the last day that we have to notify the county clerk that we might have something on the ballot. We don't have to follow through with it, but if we want to follow through with that, if we want you to be in a position where you could go for something, we had to have that to the county clerk by the 24th, so that it has been taken care of. If we as we continue to move through, if we're going to do something, we have to do an IGA with the county, with Weld County by the 25th of August. But ultimately, the board has to make a decision August 19th at our meeting. By September 2nd, I suppose we could probably have a special meeting between August 19th and September 2nd, if that was what the board decided. But the last day for the board to make a decision, if you want to go forward with something on the ballot this year, has to be made by September 2nd, so that everything can be taken care of for the ballot on the 4th.
And that's no matter what we do.
No matter what we do. If we do one, we do both. If we do none, we don't have to do any of that. But if we do mill, we do bond, we do both, the timing's the same. Then we'll talk to the election officials, similar to what we do when we do board elections by that September 21st with election day on the 3rd. All of that the board has seen before. Will you move to the next one, Jessica? In terms of engagement, right, we talked about, we've met with long range planning multiple times in the last 2.5 months. As I said, we have our next one tomorrow, and we will be updating the board on some of the feedback that we've received. We did feedback sessions with the staff, that data information you saw. We also shared that with the long range planning team in June. We had some time at barbecue days, but shared with the board. We didn't get a lot of feedback at barbecue days, so we shifted how we're trying to do things. And you can see an example of how we'll do things at Beef and Bean Day over here. We brought one example of one of the projects that we'll have out at Beef and Bean Day on Saturday. And all we're trying to do is inform individuals that will spend time with us, and then let them, with their dots, tell us what they think, so that we can give you feedback around what our constituents are thinking around the projects, which feels like it's important, right, is to get some idea of what our community thinks about the needs that the long range planning team has defined, but also that we saw how staff felt about the needs they have in their spaces. And so we'll be out again, we'll be out with the 2 buses, sort of creating a museum where we can show off our stuff and we can have individuals come in and spend a little time with us and hopefully give us some feedback. Jessica, we go to the next slide, please. What we've seen, and these are just talking around some of the themes that we have seen to this point. High support and agreement around the priorities we have, those 6 priorities. I'll talk about those again in a minute. Many were above 90% from the individuals we've heard from so far. But mixed responses around the urgency. So there are projects that we may feel like are important as a group, but not urgent. And I think that's important for the board to take into consideration. And we have heard lower support, as I think could be expected right now, for any impact of taxes in this cycle. So just as we've gone through the summer, that is some of the feedback we've received, right, is that impacting taxes does not feel real good for some of those we've got feedback from. And we're hearing polling from around the state, that same kind of messaging. There's a lot of polling around the state that's polling pretty negative around any bond. Many districts making decisions not to go for bonds because of how things are polling right now. And in many cases, not great polling around increased taxes for mill levy either. So just feedback, right? We haven't done a poll. That might be something if we decide we're pausing on one or both that we look at doing going forward, but just trying to give you feedback we're hearing statewide. Not that we would be exactly the same, but there's certainly some influences going on right now that could impact everywhere. So next, Jessica. Just a reminder, when we've been talking about the projects, the feedback we're gathering, this is no different than the feedback we'll gather when we're at Beef and Bean Day on Saturday. One is to retain and attract high quality staff in all positions, to expand authentic career exploration and preparation programs, to maintain learning environments and operational spaces, to look at fully converting Milliken Intermediate School, to complete the Roosevelt campus, and to do some renovation at Pioneer Ridge and get that space in a position like the other schools we have in the district. That school is over 20 years old now, and much of what's in the building, or there are many things in the building that are past life cycle. So just those are the 6 projects long range planning has worked on for a long period of time. And that's what we've gathered feedback so far on, are those 6 projects, which is what we'll be gathering on Saturday. We talked to you in the spring about 2 different areas. These are 2 separate opportunities the board has to consider. One would be a mill levy override. The purpose of the mill levy override really would be to retain and attract the high quality teachers, provide additional safety, security, and mental health personnel, to expand authentic career exploration and preparation programs. You have seen that skyrocket since the 2020 passing of the mill levy and the work the board at the time did. Those programs require us to keep up with it. And so I think that's important for us to consider. And then for us, we grew our early childhood program last year a great deal, over 50%. And so just to be able to maintain an early childhood program, the mill levy override could help. In terms of the second option, the bond or capital projects, the reason that the board might consider the bond projects would be the expansion updates to Milliken Intermediate School. I think when we think about that school and reutilizing it, there are a lot of things that need to be done to that building. And so taking a look at how might we do that, to build out the Roosevelt campus. The board is aware that we built that campus, the main parts of the campus, for 1,600 students. At the time, we could afford classrooms for about 1,350. And we eliminated some of the external pieces. What jumps off the top of my head is baseball, softball, We eliminated those based on cost at the time. So when we think about finishing the campus, there are things that could be part of that could finish that campus. Improvements and repairs of Pioneer Ridge. I think one of the pieces that has been talked about since I got to this building or this position was the cafeteria at Pioneer Ridge is undersized for the size of that building, has been since it was built. So looking at how do we right size cafeteria, but also then update. I mean, if you walk through there, the flooring is past its life cycle, the carpet's past its life cycle. So there are things that just need to be updated. And I think, so that's one of the things that the bond could be used for, but then also repairs across district and facilities and campuses. That's an ongoing cost. And something that can be considered out of capital improvement. So those are the two different options the board will have to contemplate through the month of August. Can we go to the next slide, Jessica? I want to talk a little bit about mill levy overrides because I think it's important, and there's sort of two ways we can go about it, and we have two in place that they have been passed in one on one side of this. First of all, a mill is equivalent to $1 of taxes for every $1,000 assessed to property value. So that's what a mill is. If you think back to 2020, the district went out for a mill levy that took the mills that individuals were taxed on to 8.8 mils. So at the time, we did it in the structure A. Voters approve a set amount of money. And the amount of mills it takes to reach that fluctuates over time. So whatever, if property value goes up, the amount of mills it takes to get to that amount of money goes down. But the money to the district stays exactly the same. And which is a good thing because you know what the money is. The challenge that it presents a board and a school district is that amount of money falls behind every year. And so when I think about the $4 million that was passed in 2020, its purchasing power today is quite different than it was when it was passed in 2020. So just something for the board to consider. And I think in some of our one-on-ones, I've shared that if the $4 million that we passed in 2020, we had done in structure B, which kept the mills the same for individuals, the amount of money that the district would have right now instead of 4 million would be 11.5 million based on the assessed valuation across the district. And you'll see in a couple slides, the assessed valuation in our district has gone up a tremendous amount. It's gone up far more than the value of anyone's houses. And I'll talk a little more about that in a couple of slides. Jessica, we go to the next slide. So this is just review, right? Is we have two current mill levies that generate revenue for our district. In 2003, we passed a $500,000 mill levy. It's that type A. It will always be $0.5 million. So if you think about what the purchasing power of a $500,000 was in 2003 versus what the purchasing power is today, it is hugely different. And then in 2020, we did the same thing with the type A, $4 million. Only in this case, it's temporary. It sunsets in 2030. And so what I think the board needs to contemplate and think about how it contemplates it for future boards, because in 2030, some of you will be sitting here and some of you may not. Maybe none of you will be here. But between now and 2030, if that were to sunset, the district is going to have to figure out how do we move through losing between 8 and 10% of our budget. So it's a big deal and something that we're going to have to contemplate every year until we can see that stabilize a bit. So both of those were approved by voters. Both of those, if you go back to the last slide, in that type A model where it's a fixed dollar amount, which means the mills required to do both of those have gone down as the community has grown. And more people are funneling to get to the $4 million. And I will talk a little bit about just the assessed valuation, both of residential and commercial, that make up how we get to the $4 million. Next slide, Jessica. So we think about the $4 million, right, that ends 10 years after we passed it. I think it's important for us to start thinking about what are the risks to the district if we end up having to face life without that $4 million. I know for Rusty, that's something he'll think about every day until it happens, if it happens. But a couple things just to consider, right, is in order to make that big of a cut in the district, it is staff. It's probably a combination of staff and increased class size. It's probably hard to do it. But with reduced staff, because there's so many compulsory kinds of things we have to teach, it also in this district would likely mean less opportunities in the CTE kinds of arena, because you're going to have to make sure you do math, English, science, social studies. And so are you able to offer everything you're offering now? The likelihood is not. So just things I think for us as a staff to be planning for, but also stuff for the board to think about as we think about the mill levy. And obviously, one of the options the board has this year, or next or the following year, you'll have to decide the right timing, would be to ask for that mill levy to not sunset, to just stay in perpetuity like the $500,000 we have. So that's an option, a future plan, something we'll have to think through as a board, which then would provide some stable long-term funding. We would at least be able to have some planning. I do think it's important to remember the $4 million and the $500,000 will fall behind every single year because everything is more expensive, including our teachers. And so just context. Next slide, Jessica. This one just represents what's happened in our community since 2020. I think this is, actually, this blew my mind actually when I saw the visual. We've talked about it, but the visual helped me a lot to understand some of what's going on in this district, given I haven't been here that whole time. But if we think about our own population in 2020 of 25,700 people, it's up 15%. Now, contextually, if you think about the communities around us, most of them are flat to up maybe 3 or 4%. So for us, the growth we're seeing of population, that's fast to go up 15% in 5.5, 6 years. But the assessed valuation has more than doubled. It's almost tripled. And that, some of that is coming from more residential. Some of it is coming from the houses that our individuals are living in going up because they've appreciated since 2020. But a huge percentage of that tripling or almost tripling is coming from commercial. And if we talk frankly, it's oil and gas impacts us here a tremendous amount. And so what the assessed valuation has done, it has dropped the amount of mills needed to make the 4.5 million more than in half. So if you think about the mill, each is $1 on 1,000, it's taken that, it's cut it in more than half. So I think that's contextually important as we think about what's ahead of us as a district. Can we go to the next slide, Jessica? So another possibility we talked about with the board was, in addition to asking for that $4 million to be sunset, is because of the assessed valuation going up as much as it has, we have some ability as a district to ask for, in the current assessed valuation, now this will change in the next month when they come out with the updated assessed valuation. Likely it'll go up slightly. It could go down if assessed valuation went down year over year. But currently, the projection would be we could ask for an extra $2.2 million without asking taxpayers to pay any extra money. And so and this $2.2 million, the board could decide they want to ask for it in type B rather than A, which would allow that to fluctuate. And if you think about how that works, if we were to go the 2.2 million in the type B model, if our assessed valuation, properties go up, people move in, so the overall assessed valuation across the district goes up, then the amount of money to the district would go up, starting with the 2.2, right? Currently, if it was starting from the current state. If the assessed valuation and we had nobody move in, the property value stays the same, or the assessed valuation stays the same, then the 2.2, what it takes to get there would stay the same. And if the property value goes down, the amount of money that generated for the district would go down. So the amount of money for the district in the model, at least we're talking about as a B, would fluctuate with the amount of the assessed valuation in the district. I'll just say from staff's perspective, when we think about what's ahead of Johnstown Milliken, having some amount of our mill levy override fluctuate and benefit from the growth that's ahead of us would benefit the district, having already 2 mill levies that are fixed. And so those 2 mill levies, if we assume the assessed valuation of the community will continue to rise, which is what the projections are, and continue to rise quite a bit, the 4.5 million we already have will take less support from each individual taxpayer. And this one, the individual taxpayer slice would go up with their assessed valuation, if that makes sense. And I'm happy right here to stop and answer questions about created any.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yep.
So, and I think that probably a lot of people in the community would have the same question. So if we were exploring the Model B where the assessed value goes up, we know that that's beneficial to the school district. What does that do to taxes? Does the tax level increase, decrease, or stay stagnant?
It's a complicated question only in this sense. The taxpayers right now are paying the $4.5 million. And if you think about the earlier statement, right, that what our community passed was a total of 8.8 mills to achieve the $4.5 million. And we passed that in 2020, and together with what was in 2003, each individual taxpayer was responsible for 8.8 mills from the school district. Currently, to get to the $4.5 million, each taxpayer is responsible for 3.5 mills. So over those 6 years, the amount of mills each individual taxpayer had to pay has gone down by more than half. If we were to add this $2.2 million in the current year, there would be no tax increase to a current taxpayer. If the assessed property value goes up, the responsibility of the individual taxpayer for the 4.5 mills or for the 4.5 million would go down, and the responsibility for the taxpayer for the 2.2 million would go up, but the net would be, it would still go down slightly. So the benefit for the district is we would have some mill levy that would allow for the money supporting the district to go up and down. And if you remember when Dan talked to us at Milliken Intermediate, he was talking about the possibility of a floor on a mill levy. If you were to do this as a board, where you had the 4.5 already stationary, the sunset went away, and you added the 2.2, we already have a built-in floor. We're gonna have $4.5 million forever. With the 2.2, there's a risk that could go way down, right? Oil and gas picks up and leaves, and we lose all the benefit of oil and gas. The amount of money from this is going to be way less than $2.2 million. But the answer really is it's almost a balance beam, with the fixed mill levy being heavier than the variable one. So if the assessed valuation goes up, the overall taxpayers hit will decrease because there'll be more assessed valuation to pay for the mills being asked for. That-
To Monica's point, how are you going to explain that to the taxpayers that come in and say, I have a $750,000 house, what does this mean? Like, explaining that to somebody,
Yeah,
like, are my taxes gonna go up? Well, maybe not.
well,
You say they're not,
Amy, if the board decides to go forward with this, then we can do what you just asked. We'll have Dan, he can come next week and walk us through that actual impact. What I'm asking you tonight to think about is what our options are. That's what I'm asking.
I know that, but I mean, when we're thinking of our options, we have to think of how that impacts
Yep.
each person who lives here.
No question. Yeah, no
And
question.
that's the question they're gonna ask.
Yep. And,
How does this impact me individually?
absolutely we do. And we'll have to, if we go forward, if the board decides you want to go forward, then we also have to, we're going to have to pound the pavement and help people understand it. And this complicates it.
It does a lot.
There's no question.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for the average person and the person who even understands mill levies to understand
No,
the structure.
no question. And something the board is going to have to consider, right, is the complication more than we're willing to take on? That's a decision the board will have to decide. From a staff perspective, I also want you to think about future boards. And as you're positioning yourself, because as we sit on a consistent amount of money that has been passed before, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller for the district. Rich, that's, as we think about how do we position ourselves, how do we stay competitive? Maybe the board decides $4.5 million is great, is fine. And we likely will slide back against people around us. Maybe not, because maybe they'll all decide they're frozen in what they're doing with salaries as well. But it's something we're going to have to contemplate. So I wanted at least to talk about it and do as best job as I can do tonight to try to put the big picture in layman terms. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But at least we've got to think about it, and we have the ability to do this up to the $2.2 million without your taxes going up this year, and we have to be able to show that, right?
What kind of effect would you anticipate if property values go down drastically? You had a terrible recession, people are moving out of the state. What does this kind of structure do in that doomsday scenario?
Well, in this side of it, it actually drops. It's that bottom one, right? Property values go down, so the amount, you're locked in as a taxpayer to 1.7 mils for this. That would be what you would pay against whatever your property's worth. So your house goes down by half, it would cost you half as much as it did before that, right? Whatever the property value is.
Not for the school district, what does that look like?
Well, the school district would still have the $4.5 million. That's the floor.
Right.
And property owners it would take more for each of the property owners to fund the $4.5 million.
Okay.
So that's the balance beam, right? I think the board can contemplate something that's different than other places. Again, you've got to decide values. But when Jessica, we go back to the growth. We have to, as a board, I think as a district, recognize that we are in a position where we're growing faster than the people around us. That's not, I just met with the town manager in Johnstown, and they're at record pace again this year for starting of homes per month. So the board contemplating, where do you think Johnstown's going to be, Milliken's going to be in 2030? Do we assume that the assessed valuation, not just residential, that would say that's going to continue to go up. If we're building 500 houses a year, then the assessed valuation just from residential, that's just Johnstown, is going to go up. What do you think is going to happen? What do we believe is going to happen with commercial in Johnstown, which has gone crazy since 2020? Will it continue? I don't have a crystal ball. But if you talk to the individuals around, they believe the growth will continue. And I think back, Michael, to the conversation we were in where they talked about 500,000 people in northern Colorado, much of that being along the 34 corridor. That's going to impact the district over the next 10 years. So do we believe the assessed valuation will continue to grow? I think that's something we're going to have to contemplate.
Kind of getting back to the questions from Monica and Amy's
Uh-huh.
to some degree, it's helpful to always, I try to think of it this way, is if so our current mill levies we're fixing the money. We're saying we get this certain amount of money. And so, I mean, we use a cake or a pie or a pizza as a example of that. The more people that come into the room, the smaller the pieces get because we're fixed to that. When we go with Plan C, where we are fixing the mill, the pieces will get bigger and smaller based on the number of people that come into the room. So if we're fixing money, we'll always get that money. So if valuation goes down, everybody's got to pay a little bit more to make sure we get that money. If valuation goes up, which, I mean, ideally that's always the case. I mean, I know there are places where valuation does go down, but I think the long bet is always that valuation will continue to climb. Maybe not as fast as it does,
As it has.
as it has, but it will always continue to move up. That with fixing it on the money, the individual taxpayer will actually pay less as the valuation grows. But when you fix it to the mill, as valuation goes up, we receive more. The taxpayer will pay more. But if it goes down, we receive less and the taxpayer pays less because it's tied that way. And so, like Scott was saying, it's kind of like a teeter-totter. We have this one side that we have to get this money for 4.5. I mean, that's what we have to get. If we do the other one, you know, if that valuation goes up or down, you know, if it goes up, then taxes go up on this side, but they go down on this side. If it goes the other way, they go down on this side and they go up on this side. So it kind of, I mean, I don't think it'll ever hit an equilibrium where you'll be net what you paid the year before, but it could be very close.
And we can run, Amy, to your point, all right, if this is something we want to probe further, we can run scenarios with Dan where we can show that to the board in the retreat next week. So we have those for you. Tonight really was trying to, at a high level, tell you what we think the options are, for you to start thinking through what's there. Can we go back, Jessica, to the one more? Two more? No, the other, sorry. Will you go back up one? Okay, any more questions here? Or you want to come back to that at the end? We keep going for?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay. So one of the pieces I've touched on a little bit, right, is that we have the ability to do the sunsetting and up to the 2.2 based on the current assessed valuation with no tax increase needed for the vote. But transparently, what we want the board to know is that if we were to write a question for the ballot, the question, because of Tabor, will have to say, are we able to raise taxes in the amount of $2.2 million? And so for us, it complicates, to Amy's point, we will have to educate our voters that if they were to vote for this, it will allow us to raise $2.2 million in taxes. The impact of that does not impact any individual's taxes based on what they're currently paying. So that's complicated to share. The benefits for the district are big. So I think that's weighing it is, do we feel like we can do that work and we can have individuals outside the school district that can help us do that work? The staff believes we can. And I think, it's something for us to wrestle with through the month of August to see how it goes through. We do believe that helps us maintain a competitive advantage. And part of the reason we believe that is we would have the ability to grow some of what we have coming in as the district grows. We wouldn't be static. And static is better than losing. But we wouldn't be static, in which case the static money would be falling behind on an annual basis as everything, including the staff, get more expensive. We go to the next one, Jessica. So we've already sort of talked about this, right? But contemplating as a board, there's option one would be to ask for the current mill levy to not sunset in 2030. That obviously won't impose any new taxes. And the taxes to get to the $4 million will continue to decrease as our assessed valuation goes up. So that's option one. Option two, we could do nothing with the $4 million this year. We could simply ask to add the 1.7 million or the $2.2 million. We could ask for that by itself with the intent of no increased taxes. And if we did that, the current mill levy would still be scheduled to end in 2030. Option three would be to write a question. We've been working with the individuals that would help with the question to do both. Ask for an ongoing additional funding based on the 1.7 mils, and also ask in that same question for the 2030 mill levy to not stop and to be there in perpetuity like the $500,000 one is. So there's those three options we believe are in front of you. You may, as you talk as a board, decide there's more than these three. These are the three we felt like made sense for you to contemplate. Obviously, there's probably option zero would be to do nothing. So those are just the options for us to discuss. Can we go to the next slide, Jessica? In terms of the bond, which was that second option, right? We just spent a ton of time trying to describe what a mill levy is because it's challenging. In terms of the bond, this will be asking for one-time funding for capital projects. And this will impact taxes. And if we decide to go out for whatever amount we go out for, again, we'll bring scenarios that show how much does it impact a traditional taxpayer for a $100,000 house. You saw some of those numbers generally when we were talking at MIS. We have since had a chance to have some estimated needs, our estimated capital needs right now. This is not anywhere close to exact because we don't know exactly what the projects would be. But estimated those 6 projects we talked about that aren't impacted by the mill levy would be just under $100 million. And just, I think, for boards to consider is that if we were to think about it in a year, we could assume that estimated price tag would go up by about 10%. So if we decide we want to go for a bond in 2028, if today it's a $100 million price tag, which again is estimated, it would be approximately $120 million. If we wait 3 years, it would be potentially $130 million, and so on and so forth. I think, when you go through the bonding, you'll hear people say it's never cheaper than it is today. That doesn't mean today is the right time to do it, but I think it is something for you to contemplate. Is the district will have needs. Exactly when we need more classrooms at Roosevelt for the high school, likely is before 2030. How much before 2030? It depends a little bit on growth. I shared with you earlier the overall district enrollment is up over 130 kids right now. It will probably go up a little more than that, and then it'll drop back down a little bit as it does every year. I think it's important for the board to hear tonight, though, that our Milliken enrollment is flat year over year. So we're up 3 in one building and down 3 in another. So in terms of Milliken, the movement of getting our students over here is stable with where it was last year. Elwell, the decisions we've made around boundaries for Elwell. Elwell is flat year over year. I think the decisions we made around Pioneer Ridge, which was a pain point last year, they were pretty small. Right now they're up 30 students for this year. So that the boundaries in elementary that the board has made have worked out super well as we walk into this year. The high school right now is sitting up a little over 30 students from last year. So not as much of growth as we saw the first couple of years that building was open. And the middle school right now is up 65. And so the growth right now this year is at the middle school, which is something I think for the board to consider as you're having dialogue around bond. And I say that simply because right now we don't have anything to support or help us with the growth at the middle school in the current bond. I think the projects in the current bond at the middle school are to replace the track and to help that be a community resource. So I think that's important for us to consider. And Nate, I think it was you at MIS who asked, are these the right projects at the right time? And enrollment tells the story, and the enrollment that we're seeing right now is different than what we experienced last year, is different what the demographer has said. So I just think as we dig in over the next couple of weeks, that's important for us to consider. And then if we decide we're going to go forward with a bond, we've got to consider what do charter schools have needs in terms of capital. KQA added a wing essentially last bond. And in terms of capital investment at Civica right now, they've got a lot of open classrooms. So I don't know what they would need, but something, if we decide to move forward with a bond, it's something for us to consider that conversation with the charters over the next couple of weeks. Next slide. So just next step, it's really going to be a ton of time with you over the next 4 weeks. We have long range planning again tomorrow night. We're going to continue to engage. We're going to work hard at Beef and Bean Day to try to use this type of feedback mechanism and get as much feedback as we can from our constituents around how they're feeling about projects, but also do they feel like are they nice to haves or are they must haves? We have to do the IGA with Weldon, Larimer County if we're going to go forward with either one. So as we move through the month to get a sense of, where are you leaning, helps us to do the IGA. If it looks like from the board members, we're not interested in doing anything, then that one becomes a moot point. We don't have to do anything by the 25th. If we're leaning toward one or the other or both, then we have to walk through that, make sure that's in place so that we have the ability to move forward. And again, we'd ask that the board does a resolution either the 19th or the 2nd. And again, if the board decided you wanted to have something else between the 19th and the 2nd, that's your prerogative. We could do a resolution there also. We just know those two are formal meetings we have. And the 2nd is soon enough that we could do it then and still move forward. Finalizing the ballot language. We'll continue to work on what that looks like. Potentially have ballot language we can share with the board what it could look like next week. Some of that based on feedback we get from you tonight, which might point us in one direction or another in terms of what we're asking that ballot language to contemplate. We're working with long range planning so that if we decide we're going for one or both, that we have a citizen committee that we can turn over all the election support
Campaign.
Thank you, couldn't find it, to the citizen committee. And again, the ballot language would have to be certified by the 4th of September. All right, what other questions? Or if that for us, we would love to have you, certainly ask staff questions. Kate has done a phenomenal job of working to understand this, helping us to understand all of this. I think there was a question from the board to try to get at least the mill levy piece in layman's terms. So we took a stab at layman's terms with some of the visuals. Did we hit the mark? Are we still missing? Your point, Amy, is not lost on me that it's challenging. So
So I don't, I have a question on the engagement piece for, we're doing surveys and talking to people. I assume that's all being tracked. Do you have a spreadsheet, for lack of a better idea, on, what we're asking, what our responses are?
Yeah, Director Musgrave, we, back starting with the staff, we've kept very parallel, almost the exact same questions in our feedback. And so we have everything from staff. There is on our website, the community page of our website, a link that has been up for the community, the same, almost same exact questions. And so I have those results. And then this is also adding into the mix.
And how much feedback outside of staff have you received numbers wise? How many constituents would you say have?
At this point, I would say it is honestly low.
Okay.
Between because really primarily it was barbecue days, which
Right.
we learned setup wise wasn't the best model. The survey is low right now. We put out social posts and on the website trying to get that out, continue to do that. Just at our launch on Saturday, I think what was really helpful was making it more visible. We definitely had more people at least looking at things. And so I would say we probably had triple to quadruple the number of people looking versus those who actually picked up the sticker and gave us the feedback. So our hope is learning from all that this Saturday will get even more.
And maybe we can make an effort to get it out even further and some of the, I don't know what all, I know that's your area of expertise, but I'd like the board to see that feedback. And I'd like a lot more feedback, I guess. It's easy to get from staff, right? But it's hard to get some pay from the community until something actually really happens. So if anyone has any fabulous ideas on how we could get that out to the community more so the board can see some real-time feedback on that. I think that would be really beneficial when we're looking at all this.
Thank you.
Just a few questions I think the community members will have is the first thing that I will get asked in public is why are we worrying about this on the 2026 ballot when it doesn't sunset until 2030? So I think helping people understand that component would be really important for us to tell that story. And then ballot language, I'm just so nervous about ballot language because let's say we go forward with one of the more conservative mill levy options, just randomly speaking. No matter what we go forward with, I think it's true that the ballot will say a tax increase, right?
if we do just the sunsetting of the $4 million one, it wouldn't lead with that. Is that correct, Dave?
Is that
So if it was just asking for it to be not sunset, that ballot language actually does lead without raising taxes.
okay?
The other two, because of Tabor, because we're asking for the community's permission to have that impact over time, those it would say.
Because what I worry about is even though we understand it, if we send this message out that these options, your taxes won't be increased, and we educate the community and we spread the word, and then they get to the ballot, and depending on what option or if we go forward says a tax increase, it makes us look almost as if we were untruthful. And so how do we portray this in a light that's direct, informative, but also so the community doesn't think we're being untruthful with what they're seeing on the ballot? And I know it's very confusing because ballot language has to be a certain way based on law. I understand that. But I think there's a conflict of what's happening and what the public will really see on the ballot. So that part is tricky. So we got to really figure that part out. And then the other side of it is a mill levy seems, it's obviously non-intrusive for a taxpayer. A bond, we're in a hard situation. We know eventually we are going to have to bond again. That's without question. If our community continues to grow, we will have to grow with it through that. But times are really hard for people right now. So I don't know if now is the right time to ask for a bond, because that one transparently will raise taxes. So just to get that out there, that will raise taxes if we go for a bond. And we're in a difficult situation because we're taxpayers. We represent districts that are taxpayers. That's our job here, is to represent a geographical area of our constituents. And so that part is really hard, where people are like, we don't want our taxes raised, but also weighing out what our students need to succeed and the growth that comes. So we're in a hard situation with that. I'm not sure if the timing is right on our ballot this year to go for a bond. I'm kind of leaning that it's not the perfect time to go for a bond. And as far as a mill levy, I would just love to be able to help people better understand that, because boy, a mill levy is confusing and the options are confusing. And I just wouldn't ever want to be portrayed as we're trying to be deceptive or sneaky with a tax increase, if that's not really what it means. So those are the three things I just wanted to bring up.
I mean, it is a tax increase though. I mean, it increases your property taxes. So we have to, I mean, if somebody asks, yeah, it's an increase. Like the 4.4, no, we already did it. Not gonna raise it, not gonna change anything. But if we do the additional one, it is a tax increase. How much of a tax increase? We do it how it looks like we're leaning. It fluctuates, and I think that's harder to explain to people.
Yeah, I think what I would ask the board is we continue to work on that. How do we show household examples? We can do it with both for next week. But there's no question there's some challenges to how that looks, right? And Monica, to your question around the timing of 2026, what I heard the board say at MIS was it gives us opportunities, right? As the superintendent right now, and even in conversations with Rusty, if we don't see the sunset going away soon, you have to start planning that in your budget years in advance. You can't wait till 2030 and drop $4 million out of your budget, or it really hurts the community. Because you're cutting out, you think 10% of our staff, that's a big chunk. So you start shrinking your staff, 2 years, 3 years in advance a little bit, so you're not taking a $4 million hit at one time. We're not in a place where we have to start that in 27, 28. Maybe we are, I don't know. I haven't talked to Rusty about 20. We didn't this year start thinking about what do we do if we don't pass that. But that is, if you scream right up until the election in 29 before you pass it, you've already planned for something so that you're not landing on a $4 million revenue cut in 1 year. So it's, you've tried to soften that. So it happens over a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. And then you're going back out to try to replace it at some point. So that's what I heard the board say, was it gives us a couple bites of the apple.
Yeah, that, and it does. I mean, if we go out this year and it doesn't, we aren't able to pass it, we can still get a lot of information back from the voters as to why they didn't support it. And we still have an opportunity to come back then in one more election before we have to sunset it, to try to correct anything or re-educate.
And I understand how that works. I think it's just good to say it in a public meeting, that the point of us discussing this now is we're trying to plan ahead. we're trying to plan ahead so we don't come across these catastrophic problems, which I don't think you could use another word than catastrophic. If we lose that money, it would be so detrimental to the school district. So I just really wanted that to be said in a public meeting, why we're going about this at the time that we are, is really, wouldn't you say the best word is to prepare for the future? There's probably a better way to say that.
I think that's the right way. Last time we did this, before I was on the board, but in 2019, both the mill and the bond failed. And so in both cases, we sat and talked to the community. We learned what was, because I think the board at the time, again, I wasn't on it, tried to answer some of these questions without a lot of, because it wasn't there. And the conversation didn't really start until the ballot language came out, or October, I guess, of that year. So you're right, we need more community feedback, we need more input. If we can get it, great. We have a whole bunch of back to school nights coming up real soon. That would be great if we could have staff, I don't know, somebody to ask some of these questions. The simple fact is we're not going to hear a lot. We're not going to get that feedback until voters see it on a ballot. And so if we prepare, and Kate's done a great job, those infographics is a huge step in the right direction. I think you're both right. We're not quite there yet. The 2.2 especially, it's just confusing. How are we going to increase revenue by $2.2 million, but not really increase taxes by $2.2 million? It's a hard question to answer. Not even 100% sure I understand it all yet. So we can't expect voters to understand it yet. But the simple fact is we have to do something about the mill levy in particular. We are standing on the edge of a cliff that faces us in about 4 years, and we have to start planning for that now if we don't pass something soon. So I don't want it to fail, but if we put it on the ballot and it fails, we have time to come back, listen to the voters, hear what they have to say, come back and say, we heard you, this is what we're putting on the ballot now. That is what happened with the mill levy last time. That is why we have the sunset on the ballot now, because that was one of the things we heard, was that this needs to sunset, and at some point we decided it was 10 years. Now we've got to do something about that. So I hope that helps a little bit just from past experience with what has happened in this community.
I like the imagery of just we're standing on a cliff if we don't try to prepare now.
So, and then just again, to start the conversation a little bit about the bond, I'm with you, Monica. I am not 100% sure that now is the right time to put a bond on the ballot. And not necessarily because the projects are wrong, the projects as we look at them today are right. I think enrollment might tell us a different story in a year or two, particularly at the middle school and maybe at the high school. I said this in our work session, but what we couldn't have expected was that we would gain about 100 students a year at the high school for the last 3 years. We're not seeing that this year. Maybe we have hit that peak and we're going to be okay. But we are seeing that enrollment increase at the middle school. So we might have things to consider there. What we expected to happen was to have a conversation about needing a new elementary school right now. That is not what we're seeing today. So I think we need maybe a little bit more time to watch trends and see what enrollment is telling us. The consultants will tell you it's best to have a bond on the ballot during a presidential election, which is not this year. So if we waited 2 more years, it delays building. If we need to build a classroom space at Roosevelt High School, we're going to be tight for a little while. Same at Roosevelt Middle School. But we've got space at the elementary level right now to manage that. So again, these are my initial thoughts. I can be convinced other ways, but I'm just not convinced right now that putting a bond on the ballot this fall is the right question right now. The MLO is a different story. We have got to do something about the MLO. So those are my thoughts.
I just have a quick question too. Even though we're preparing now 2026 for the mill levy override, because it is written that it sunsets in 2030, does it go into effect after the election if it passes, or do we see out until 2030, or does it matter? I'm guessing it matters what wording we have on the ballot, really. Is that correct?
I think what we've contemplated is it actually changes it immediately by the passage January 1st.
It
Yeah,
was,
yeah, but it would change, essentially it replaces what's currently in place. with the
Okay.
money. Is that correct, Kate?
thank you.
And I'm thinking, and not my question, I know the answer to this question, but from the community, we're gonna be getting, why do you need more? If we gave you 4.4. And then there's the feedback, some of the feedback I've received is, no, they think because, okay, there's new houses everywhere, right? There's new everything everywhere. We have all that money coming in, why do we need more? So we're gonna be asked why? What did you do with the money we already gave you? Which I know that you guys have been working on, sending out all this, building, the CTE program, so I know that's been an issue that has definitely been addressed, but that's what we're going to ask. Why?
But for me, I think, and some of you in our conversations, right, have heard me say when you think about the two different styles of mill levy, right? Well, one where we freeze the amount of money, which is what we did. We chose to freeze the amount of money. And so we can have as many people move in as possible. I mean, we can blow up and everyone's taxes, you're paying a smaller portion of the $4 million. The school district is still getting exactly the same amount. So we don't benefit from that
But
if it's frozen.
I understand.
No, I
don't
know.
think the community.
No, and that, which is why
Yeah.
for me, I put it out
Yeah.
for whoever's watching it, but I do think that's a part of the story. I think boards contemplate whether they go with A or B every time they do a mill levy override. And in our circumstances, I think we at least need to contemplate at some point doing a mill levy that floats as we increase. Because like I think I said earlier, if we had passed a mill levy in the Model B in 2020, I recognize that might not have passed, but if we had, right now, the district would be bringing in over $11 million instead of $4 million. And the taxpayer would still be paying the same mills. So the mills they paid, your property maybe in those 6 years has gone up some. I don't know what percentage they've gone up in Johnstown. So your responsibility for that 11 million would have gone up, but the majority of that would have been new people coming in. And they would have been paying what others were paying. The way we did it is it made everybody's pie slice smaller and divvied it up over more people and over the commercial, which was good for our taxpayers, and that's important. But I also think it's important for us to think about the school district and how we position ourselves, just transparently for who's here when none of us are here. There's going to be another superintendent sitting here at some point in the future, thinking back to what happened in whatever, as I am thinking about what happened in 2020. We position this district not for 2026, 27. We've already budgeted for that. We're positioning our district for the next 10 years, the next 15 years. And we would be in a completely different spot. I mean, one of the contemplations I have, if the board back then had decided not to go for $4 million, but to go for $2 million, which would have been smaller in the beginning, but worth more today, if we had done B. So those are things I at least think we need to contemplate as we position us to be competitive. And for me, that's how that's how I roll, is I want this district to be the best around. And we're on the path there. We're not there yet, but we're on the path there. But I do think decisions we make over the next year, 2, 3, position this district for what's going to happen in 2034. So that just, I guess I think that's important for us to think about.
We're asking, I think a large part of our constituency already believes that we're in the option B, that that's how our levy works. We're getting more people, we're getting more everything. So the district's already getting more money. They don't understand the flat amount. That's people I've talked to. I don't know about you guys. I think that
Most
they
people-
already have a misunderstanding of what our current mill levy is.
I agree.
So,
I totally agree, and I've heard some of the same, which is part of the reason that the infographics are set up the way they are. I think Kate, when she was working with the person that could take words and make them visuals, was trying to get at that and trying to get to a place. I think just the conversation tonight, also thinking about the balance beam thing, because if we were to go a different direction at some point with another mill levy, we're gonna have some fixed to dollars, some fixed to mills, and there's gonna be this thing going on with all of your taxes. I mean, and so, a visual to help us with that might be important. We'll continue to play with that. I heard from some that the visuals at least are on the right track.
I think so.
Um,
It's a lot more than what we did have.
Yeah.
Whoever did
Yeah,
this did
that's
great work.
It's really good.
I think what would really help, and I mean, maybe Amy brought it up. If we could have a graphic like this that says, I own a house that's worth $300,000.
Mhm.
Here's my taxes today, based on the current mill levy that we have. Here's what it would be in 2027 if this passed, at $300,000, at $500,000, at $700,000 of value of a home. And then people can do a little bit of math in their head if they're somewhere in the middle
Yeah.
of that. I think that would be really helpful, and under both scenarios too, because that would help us, I think, decide
Yeah.
which scenario we go with, and then we can cut one out when we send it to the community in a mailer or in a
Yeah.
newspaper ad or Facebook ad or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's good feedback.
Yeah, I really like that idea of, and almost even saying this is where we're at now, helping people understand that as our community grows, we are staying stagnant as far as what we're bringing in. So I love that idea of saying, as the community grows, also the school district will benefit too. So
Well, and we have to keep in mind that as the community grows, the school district has grown.
Correct.
When I started on the board 6 years ago, we had just more than 3,000 students. And now we have close to 4,000 students.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
so
more than
that
20%.
$4 million doesn't go as far as it did, because we've got a lot more students than we used to. So we need to put that somewhere in there. And what I heard you say, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but option B, I think, one of the selling points could be that the new building would pay more of its own way, because they would be paying the same tax rate as I am right now today as a taxpayer in this community, as opposed to them moving in and reducing my tax burden a little bit and paying a little bit less on there. Because we hear that a lot, and development needs to pay its way. This is one way we can help make sure development pays its way.
That is one way that option B definitely works is, I would try to just moving along here. I would kind of give you guys my thoughts on it. So for me, one of the big things has just been the lack of engagement that we've been able to get. And I know, you guys said you really kind of struggled at barbecue days, and I was kind of hopeful that we get here quite a bit there. I am hopeful that we'll be able to get something out of Beef and Bean Day. And so that's been kind of a big thing for me, is just that it's been hard to get a pulse on the community on what they actually think about this. And before I go any further, I do not want to undermine the work that the Long Range Planning Committee has done. They did exactly what we asked them to do. And before the night we went in at MIS, when we actually heard their plan, I went into that. My biggest concern right now is just getting rid of the sunset on the 2.2, or I'm sorry, the 4. See, we're already getting confused. That was my concern. Bond projects, I didn't have much interest until I saw their plan. And there you had, I think it was like one of the first things you had in your slide deck here was that, there's a high agreement around the priority. It was just some mixed feedback on the urgency, but I think that priority, I think they nailed it. I mean, the work that they were able to do to identify the areas that we need to look at, that's not going to change in the next year or two. It'll probably become more of a priority as time goes by, but I don't want to undermine the work that they did. And I encourage them to continue the work they're doing right now. the ballot language is going to be the sticky wicket in all of this. And unfortunately, I think our ballot this year is just going to be littered with lots of tax questions from the state, the county, all the other taxing districts that people may live in who are within our school district. And I don't want to get lost in all that noise with something extra. And so, for me, we got to get rid of the sunset. I mean, that for me, that is just the highest priority. Because I don't want to step off that cliff, and I don't even want to take the steps towards any closer to that cliff than we are. And I know some of these ballot measures that are coming that might possibly be on ballots are going to be related to school finance. And I think it's just going to be a confusing time to try to step up to the mic and say something that doesn't add to the confusion. All that being said, this gives us the opportunity, though, to, especially on the bond side, if we hold on the bond, to build a stronger campaign towards that. Help people understand what the Long Range Planning Committee actually did do and what they saw and how that works for us. And I'm glad you brought it up tonight, because this is one of the things I had on my notes was we're not doing our charter schools any favors by going for bond this fall, because it gives them very, very little time to plan on how they would utilize money for capital projects. And I think, we need to give them a little more consideration than, hey, you got 2 months to try to sell your families on a bond that, who knows what you're going to get. But this helps them, brings them in, gives them the opportunity to plan. And again, I think one of the other things you said tonight, Superintendent Nielsen, was one of the levels that we're not even looking at is the middle school. And that's where we're seeing that growth. And so, I'll be interested to see what Long Range Planning comes back with after the next 2 meetings as they kind of digest that and look at, how the trends that they've been looking at have shifted. If you've been living under a rock in this part of Weld County, you probably haven't heard about Cascadia and the Catalyst project. What a lot of people in our district don't realize, though, is right across the street from that is what's called Golden Triangle. That is our school district. And I just drove by there today, and I just saw new signs up there for multifamily sale. Anything that happens there could have a massive impact on what happens right across the road in our school district. And so, again, thinking about a bond, I think we need to kind of see where the dust is going to settle with Catalyst and Cascadia, and what might develop along the Golden Triangle. So all of that is to say, I'm probably leaning no on a bond in the fall. I love the idea of option C. I'm calling it option C, the removing the sunset and getting the extra 2.2. But my highest absolute priority right now is removing that sunset so we don't step any closer to that cliff.
Oh, Sadie's got her hand up. I'm sorry.
I know. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
So, hearing your conversation, it sounds like you guys won't move for a bond in the near future. I'm just wondering what a $100 million bond would do to the average community member.
Hey, do you have numbers off the top of your head? Because
Or in general.
They have really good visuals, Sadie, at was it an April work session? It was at our long-term ranging planning committee. Did I say that right?
Long Range Planning Committee.
They brought in great visuals of really what that would look like I think that they had it for the average household. And I want to say, we can probably find that, but I want to say it was maybe $25 a month, something like that. Does that sound approximately?
Well, it's so variable.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the value of your home is what drives that cost, obviously. So,
Assessed value.
sorry,
Mhm.
yeah. Assessed value.
Assessed value.
So a more expensive home is going to get a little more, less expensive.
And as that bond is held off, it will increase, of course.
The overall cost would increase.
Yes.
Potentially,
Yeah.
depending on what projects we choose.
Mhm.
And all I can tell you is last time we had, the bond was $140 million, $145 million. And that cost at the time for a $350,000 house was somewhere in the neighborhood of like $30 a month.
Oh, yeah.
That's off the top of my head, but Kate has more accurate numbers.
So if we were to assume that our needs were around that 100 million, what we would then subsequently ask voters for, the house 100,000. Looks like it would be actually $26 annual increase.
And
At $100,000 of value,
Yes.
assessed value. So
Interesting. Okay.
You're the math whiz, so you could probably figure that out faster than the
there's
rest of
one
us.
house, I think, in our school district that assesses at $100,000, right? So we have to do the math on
Yeah.
that, which we will leave to you.
Have there been any considerations about like asking for a smaller bond for more closer needed stuff? So for example, maybe we only focus on PRE, we're replacing the carpets or something. Has there been any consideration like that?
I've been kind of a vocal advocate of that. One is, especially how we pair it with the mill levy override, that some of that mill levy override money could actually be used for capital projects. And that's an interesting thing, is like the bond money can only be used for capital projects. The MLO money, we have the flexibility to use them for capital projects or for staff, salaries, programming. But we could use that money to do some of the smaller things to try to knock that price down. But Scott, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say something similar, that mill levy money is money annually, so there is some money in that could potentially be used for some of that annually. And yeah, we have contemplated smaller bond. And I think even talked about it at MIS that day. The challenge is when you start to line out the projects that the long-range planning felt like was important, it landed in between 90 and $100 million.
Mhm.
So then you start prioritizing, which we could do as a board, or we could decide we want to do a $50 million. I think when we were meeting with the town of Milliken, they asked us if we had ever contemplated more frequent, smaller bonds. So that was their take. But then you're going back out to your voters a lot too. So there's nothing downside to it. The finishing of Roosevelt or meeting the needs of our high school students, there's going to be quite an expense to that. And whether that's at Roosevelt, because we're completing that campus, or whether, as board member talked about, when we're at MIS, potentially looking at our next middle school, high school, without, there's gonna be a pretty big expense to that too. So I think it's something to consider for sure. The projects we've gone out to ask for walk us close to $100 million. So
And just out of curiosity, we've mentioned like we've seen growth more in the middle school, but none of the capital projects really address that. What does that look like? When will there be a point where there's some need for capital projects to go towards RMS, given that they've just moved into a new building? Like, what would the timescale be for that?
well, if we were to go for a $100 million bond right now, it's probably 6 or 7 years, 8 years before you can do anything else.
Sure.
So I think your question underneath it is, if we were not to do anything now, would middle school be contemplated? Which I think is sort of what I've heard other board members talk about tonight, is that potentially, if we were to wait a year, we might find the middle schools at the top of the list instead of at the bottom. I'm curious, over the course of the 2 years we've been meeting with long range planning, we engage with a demographer. So, and we'll continue to engage. He's come to speak to the board, I think twice in my tenure.
Twice for 20 times.
Fair. He was very clear with us as a board, or as a long-range planning committee, that the school that we had the least amount of risk at was the middle school.
Okay, that makes sense.
And yet this year, even last year, we saw decent growth at the middle school. Once we built the new building, the population at the middle school looks different today than it looked 2 years ago when it was in Milliken. And the brand new school has helped. The opportunities at that new school are attracting people, and so to be up, I think that building was 745 last year. It's going to be 810, 850 this year. If you do that 2 more times, you're over your capacity currently. So I think, I don't remember which board member said it, but the enrollment influences decisions, and the enrollment right now looks different than it looked as we walked into 25, 26.
I just want to jump back on reducing the dollar amount of the bond. One thing is, so in our last bond, we went after a lot of grants. We went after a lot of best grants, and we were able to, what was it like, for every dollar that we were approved in taxes, we added 33 cents in grant dollars, which is huge. Interesting enough, we're probably in a really good position to go for more best grants. Our match has probably changed enough to where we would actually get more best money than we did in the past, because of the size of our district's growing, our bonding capacity, our current debt. Unfortunately, best grant is in the same boat that everything else public education in the state of Colorado is in. Their budgets are being cut pretty hard. I still think we have projects though in this package that the Long Range Planning Committee brought us that would easily qualify. Not easily qualify. They would qualify for best consideration, and I think we have enough experience with the best grant that we could probably be recipients of some to help offset those costs or augment the money that we put into those projects based off that bond. So.
So say this is why I was really excited when you applied and we interviewed you, because you asked great questions. But the question, the one you asked about taking smaller bites of the apple more often, what it does is create voter fatigue, right? We're already going to deal with that. If we were to go to a bond this year, we already have questions, and you brought it up about why are they coming again, right? So the balance you have to strike is proving the need more often. Right? So if we were to do what you suggest, I think the one project we could make a really easy sell to the community on is MIS. Completely renovating MIS, I think, is a really easy sell because of the state of the building. It's our oldest building. Well, it's been renovated to a certain extent, but it's our oldest building. It would be easy to probably qualify for some best grants. If we were to put that on a bond this fall, I think it would be okay. But the question again is, where does enrollment drive us? So right now, enrollment doesn't support the fact that we need more elementary space or new elementary space. So that's the balance we have to strike, and not create voter fatigue. We're going every 5 or 6 years and asking for $50 or $60 million, because then the question becomes, you asked earlier, what are we doing with this money, right? Where is it all going? So it's a hard balance to strike, but I think that's what our conversation is about. So how do we do that?
And it's interesting. I feel like I'm back in, and these guys get tired of me telling this story, but 25 years ago, when I worked for the newspaper, I sat down with the superintendent of this district, and that's when Johnstown was kind of having its first big growth spurt, and they were talking about building a new school, and it ended up being Pioneer Ridge. But I asked him, we were looking at this big, huge map of all of Johnstown, all of Milliken, the whole school district, and where all these developments were supposed to be coming. And I said, where are you going to build the new school? And he said, I have no idea. And I remember thinking as I walked out there, I was like, man, I'd hate to have that job to try to figure out where to build these schools based off of stuff that hasn't even happened yet, but trying to get ahead of it before it does. And then, 20 years later, I'm sitting in this seat trying to decide where to put the schools But it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of come back again because I know, like, not even a year ago, I was talking with some people in the community about, and they were asking that question: when do you think we'll go for a bond with all the growth? And I said, well, we need space in elementary because this time last year, that's what we were seeing was like this huge push into our elementary, and then we're a year removed from that, and it's, we're seeing the boundaries that we established are actually starting to play out the way we hoped they would, and our enrollment there is flat because of that. But middle school is taking off. So
But I think you just spurred a thought for me that I think the board deserves some credit for. You took a risk to do what we did in Milliken. Because I think there were people that weren't sure that splitting our Milliken one school in two and allowing all our Milliken families to come back. But that is part of the reason we don't have a challenge at elementary right now, because we opened a tremendous amount of seats at the elementary level by using space we had. That was a decision that benefited our district, but it also benefited our taxpayers because it essentially created a new elementary. And so that helps our boundary conversation now. And you heard me say earlier that that decision has paid off in terms of where we are today. We don't have any of our 3 elementary schools plumb full. Where 2 years ago, we were talking about boundaries, all 3 of them were plumb full. So that's because we took a risk and decided to shift how we were doing elementary. Ironically, we kind of went back to the future. We went back to the way the district used to do elementary, at least in Milliken. And so I just want to give some kudos to the board as you think about, that was a pretty prudent decision.
do you have some comments, questions, Liam?
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to the public perception piece that Dr. Musker was talking about, and how we're going to try to portray these questions and trying to give the public a space to be able to ask those questions. When in 2019 and 2020, were there town halls or public information sessions or workshops? We could hold a workshop for how does a mill work? What does an MLO mean? What does this bond even mean? What are our options here? What are your options as a voter? What is Tabor like? What does the Bill of Rights look like? What is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights? What is it talking about? When we say, yes, there is a tax increase, at least on the ballot, but no, there actually isn't. How are we going to express that and actually giving voters a space to be able to ask those questions and us really to be transparent about that and the fact that there won't be. However, because of Tabor, it must say it. So I'd love to know, I mean, if we've done that before in previous years, or if we haven't, how we could be able to go through that process.
Yeah. So with the first bond, I was on the board with the first attempt, and we didn't have a lot of community input.
And Bill was actually on the ballot.
Right. There were things that we were aware of that the community wanted. The community wanted a new high school. That project, that ballot measure did not have a new high school in it. So the second time through, yes. And that was kind of the nice thing about it was, and it's kind of like I was saying, this gives us time to build a strong campaign around it. We did take a lot of time to go out and talk to the community. We did a lot. We tried to do a lot of town halls and community events where people could come and talk and ask questions. And we got some participation. And it's just people are busy. And until they're getting ready to check that box, man, it's not a big priority up until that point. What we did, we spent a lot of time putting stuff on social, trying to explain the different aspects of school finance, how an MLO works. We talked a lot about the BEST grant, where that money comes from. And so I would say we had a pretty good informational campaign the second time around, as best as we could. That was before.
Well, it was after the first one that failed, and in the process of getting ready for the second one, that's when we, I feel like, had a lot more community input again, because we had started the conversation,
The
you
year
know,
before.
I don't know whether it was good or bad to have it on the ballot, but that started the conversation and people showed up to those meetings that we were having because we'd already had a ballot, an issue on the ballot that fit. So some were for, some were against, and that's the way it's gonna be this time, but it didn't really, I feel like it didn't really start until we had the ballot or the language on the ballot the first time in 2019.
Right.
And,
Yep.
and I would say too, I was just a taxpayer at the time. I wasn't on the board. That the second time around, correct me if I'm wrong, I felt like our school communities, meaning our teaching staff, our admin, everyone that worked at schools was, I'm not going to use a number, but overwhelmingly for it. And so they got out and campaigned in behalf of the bond too. Wouldn't you say that that's factual? That they did a lot more really boots on the ground work for the second time around.
I think they tried the first time around as well. It wasn't as visible
Mhm.
because there wasn't as much focus on any kind of bond or MLO that first time.
Yeah.
At least that's how I felt about it.
It was basically, it was essentially a single capital project
Mhm.
with some maintenance stuff. So,
Whatever we want to move forward with, if it's whatever it is, the back to school nights, I love that. I think that would be great. Obviously motivating the base of, that's going to be the base of the voters is parents and grandparents and family members of the students. But also more events that attract even more people. Football games are going to be huge and continue to be huge. Thousands of people are always there every Friday. So if there can always be a booth there or something like that, just as much community events as possible, always having use there. I don't know what other community events are other than the football games. Is there anything?
oh, there's 1,000 things that we'll think of
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
fact, but
Yeah.
I think the football game thing is a good idea.
Mhm.
I think wonderful questions. And I think one of the things we've been working on, right, is there's a point in the process where the district has to hand it over to a campaign because we have to step out of it as a district. There comes a time where all we can do is sort of blue book it, put pros and cons. And so we have had dialogue around what a campaign could look like. And then there's individuals that are starting to put together what a campaign could look like outside of the district. And some of that is staff members outside of staff time that worked I think the last two is what I heard from some staff members. But there certainly is energy. And I will tell you, one of my first conversations when I got to the district was with a leader from one of our communities who just sat with me and said, "You're never going to pass another bond in this community again." And I've had conversations about saying now, and they recognize the need. So I do think there is recognition that we are growing fast. And while as a superintendent, I recognize we ask the voters to support us. We continue to grow and we continue to have more needs. When you have more students, you have more needs than we had in 2020, and that will continue. So we got to tell that story. And we've been working through social media, particularly. I think Kate's done a good job of getting stuff out this summer, and we'll continue to work on that. I also we've had some conversations about back to school night, what that could look like. And so we'll continue to probe on that and try to get the board the best information we can. And there is I think we've had multiple board members say, you learn before, but you also may learn something when we fail, if in fact we go for one and fail. But I would also say, what I've heard tonight is more energy around mill than bond. I haven't heard a lot of energy around bond this year, which I totally understand. And I would say the long range planning team is going to continue to do the work. They've got boundaries to think about. They've got work to try to understand what things are going to look like down the road. And they've got to sort through what projects would they recommend for the board a year from now, 2 years from now. So that group will still continue. And our conversation as a staff will be, as we move forward, we will bring a charter member on so that as we go through our long range conversations in the future, they'll be at the table with us. So just contextually based on a comment I heard earlier, that's our own plan as a long range planning team.
What time is that meeting tomorrow?
5 to 7.
Actually, I looked. Just out of curiosity, did you learn about Tabor?
I have learned about Tabor yet.
I think so much of our population is
Mhm.
It's,
what's it, 30 years old, 30, 40?
92, I think.
Yeah. I was just curious.
Yeah.
That actually makes me
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I feel like so many people don't understand it. We need to be teaching that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you made the point too, and I sit on the, planning commission, and I almost every single public hearing we do, there's an applicant who will come forward talking about a project, and they'll say, and we're gonna put it near the school district, and all this money is gonna go to the, we're gonna generate all this tax dollars for the school district, and I have to stop them and say, that's not how school districts get their money. The growth and new industry it just means everybody else's taxes come down, that school district still gets the same amount of money that they got before. And so, yeah, people just don't have a strong understanding of how school finance works. And
Just one more thought on marketing in particular as we talk about community events. And I know I said back to school night, I want to be a little careful because I don't want parents coming in with their kindergartner to get bombarded with, where do we build a new school, So be a little cautious there because they have bigger priorities that night. Yeah. The other thought I just want to make sure, and this is why that mailer we sent out earlier this year is so important, is there are a lot of voters who don't touch our schools in any way. They don't have kids, they don't have grandkids, and they're paying a tax towards the school district. So we got to find a way to communicate with them. That's not just Facebook and whatever other social media, because they don't use Facebook and social media. So just keep that in mind as we're marketing.
what do you guys think? Any other questions? We're not going to obviously take any action on this tonight. So anything else you want to say now? Because I think we'll talk more about this at the retreat.
Yeah.
So well, why don't we move on? Cake is probably getting. What does cake do? It's hard. It's ice cream cake.
We can't let Sadie pay the mail.
Well, let's move. Let's move on to that final special business item, and that's the scheduling of the board retreat. Scott.
Yeah, President Wales and board members, we talked about the retreat, I think at a June meeting. Tonight, we're asking you to just formalize and make a motion to have a retreat next week, starting at 6 o'clock.
Any questions on that? I only have one.
I hope the answer is yes.
Will we have queso?
Do we have a sense of how long, what kind of agenda we're looking at, how long?
Yeah, we were thinking, there are 3 agenda items the staff has. One would be to continue the conversation about long range. We would like to show you at that point where we have, what feedback we have. But continue the conversation. We will do our best to take feedback tonight and come back with some updated visuals and continue to just give you information so that later in the month you can make a decision. I think I've heard board member talk about the evaluation tool for the superintendent. And then we would like to update the board on some of the work we're doing with the rest of the district around scoreboard and things we're monitoring. Each school's doing their own. And we've got some ideas around things we think the board might contemplate as a monitoring tool for the board. So we can have our scoreboard, if you will, as a district. So those are the 3 topics we have from staff's perspective.
That helps.
Yeah.
So how long do you?
I don't know. I'm just trying to plan.
Yeah. Well, I'll make a motion to schedule a board retreat for Wednesday, August 12th, 2026 at 6 p.m. to be held here at the District Administration Building.
We have a motion by Director Johnson, a second by Director Musgrave to schedule a board retreat for Wednesday, August 12th, 2026 at 6 p.m. to be held here at the admin building. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana, would you please poll the board?
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Keith Colonna,
Yes.
Stephen Musgrave, yes, Michael Barrett.
Yes. Do we have any citizen comments on general topics?
Stephen signed up.
And we do not have an executive session this evening. Are there any future agenda requests? All right, hearing none, we will go ahead and adjourn at 8:05. Thank you, everybody.